What does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? A dangerous amount of coffee and a ton of grit. My name is Jason Tracy, and every week I interview business leaders to share their stories, life lessons, failures, and advice with you. Welcome to Coffee and Grit.
What is up? What is up? What is up? I knew this was going to be a fun episode, an awesome episode anyways, but I look over and I see Abigail like shaking her head to the music, like, let's go. I always know it's going to be great when my guest is getting into the theme music. It's so funny. I don't know how many other podcasters have to listen to their theme music to get started, but when that music doesn't play, I'm like, oh, we start now? Or like, when do we start? You know, like I have to have that cue, and that roar just kicks it off. So I hope it does for you what it does for me. But we are in for a phenomenal episode today. I am so excited. I've had this one on my calendar and circled double circles for quite some time. I talk about it all the time. Stories are data with soul. And I was so fortunate enough to be able to sit one-on-one with Abigail back. Man, I think the months was like winter months.
I think so.
Like maybe February, March, maybe somewhere around there, and just really hear her story. And I was blown away. I met Abigail at Chamber Marketing Mashups, and I've seen her, and she's just this positive ray of life and ray of light. And she seems like so innocent and just all this stuff. And then she sits and she tells me this just story that had my jaw dropped, and I was like, I would love to have you on Coffee and Grit and to tell that story. And she said, I'm not ready yet. And I respect that, right? And I've had several people that have told me that throughout time, and then they've ended up coming on. And we talked about some other stuff, and Abigail disappeared for a while. And then all of a sudden I started getting these like messages from people saying, oh my God, I'm being impacted by this amazing ray of light, Abigail Hathaway. Have you ever heard of her? And I was like, yeah. Or I sat down next to Abigail Hathaway today at a chamber function, and she was telling me her story, and now I'm ready to tell my story, which is really cool, like motivating and inspiring people. So I'm so excited to dive into this. This is going to be one like, fasten your seatbelts, grab your boxes of Kleenex. This one is going to be just impactful. So Abigail Hathaway, welcome to the studio.
Well, hello, Jason. Thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here, and thank you all for watching.
My absolute pleasure. Again, it's, you never know. And I say this all the time, you never know what people are going through.
Right.
And you never know what people's life experiences are. And so sometimes you can judge people or make assumptions, and then you get in and you dive in and you hear their story and you're like, wow, like you are incredible. And that's even the whole reason for this show is diving in, because people don't know these stories a lot of times. And then they're walking around like thinking that they have no hope.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And then until you break that surface, you'll never know.
Yeah. Yeah. So where should we start?
I don't know. The beginning?
In the beginning.
December 18th, 1992, on a snowy morning. Abigail was born.
So tell me that story a little bit. You're born, and what does that look like? I mean, you obviously don't know what that looks like, but right. If growing up, what does that look like for you?
Well, I'd say that I like to view life as many different chapters of being reborn. So not only did I have my physical birth back, when I was an infant coming out of the womb, but I also believe through different stages that I've been through, like a butterfly in a cocoon, I have been reborn multiple times. And recently it has been the most impactful because of all the life lessons that I've learned up to this point. I've finally gotten to that pinnacle to where I'm back at it, third time's the charm.
Yeah.
And moving forward from here, I'm never going to go back into the depths of hell and what I was born into. And I'm ready for this new world that I find myself in.
And I love it. And it's, I think we can resonate together. And like, it's those experiences that we go through life that we so wish that, especially probably at the time, that we weren't going through them,
right.
That best prepares us to be able to help and to inspire and to impact other people.
Exactly. Yeah. And through hindsight, I see that all of the trials and tribulations that I faced, the hardships, it was just building resilience, building strength for me to be the person I am today. And now I can inspire others. Like I like to say, we all Hathaway within to accomplish our dreams and goals, no matter the circumstances in which we face.
Absolutely. I call it eating faces.
Yeah.
Surviving and thriving in spite of the circumstances.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Because we really don't have a choice.
Right. Do or die.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. So can you kind of paint the picture a little bit about when you say depths of hell, a little bit about what that means?
Well, I guess for me, what it means is that I was awarded the state from 9 months until I was 18 years old, which that's one thing. When people hear that fact alone, they're like, whoa, I would have never expected that. You seem so well-mannered. And
Yeah.
it's like, how did you learn that? And great
How
question.
did you learn to talk?
How did you learn to be civilized? So I have no traditional family. I was raised under contract by the courts until I was 18. I had a legal guardianship. And it was interesting. I was put into a position or a situation where, like on the weekends I had to go to my birth mother's house, and I was exposed to things that I reference as hell on earth, which is, like drug use, drinking. I was the only non-felon that I know of in the whole dynamic, the first to graduate from high school, let alone to have, accomplished so much. I've lived my life to break all the chains and to transmutate my trauma into triumph. But the first part of my life, my adolescence, I actually not like to think, but I reflect on it, that I didn't really have a childhood. I just had to kind of learn that I was going to be the one to have to teach myself how to become an adult and how to survive in this world. So I didn't get that typical childhood that everyone, thinks about. Even with my birthday being in December, even when I had a birthday party, like all the kids from school could never even come really because it's the holiday, So like the little milestones in life, I always had to be a fly on the wall to then see how the world lived. But through that, I gathered a lot of data, and I could see how I could reflect or relate to the world at some point. Because I always knew, I always had faith that I was going to make it to the other side, is what I call it. So I was born into hell, and now I've made it into heaven because I made sure to live pure as I can, because we always have, the ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
And hell can be so weighing on one's soul that you don't even know you're there until you get a glimpse of the other side. And I fought through.
It's incredible. And, it's one of those things, like it's when you talk about the people are like, oh my God, how did you become civilized? And just kind of like the shock. And it's funny when you think about it, however you take that when people say that. But for real, when you're growing up around all this, it is a miracle to see somebody that comes out pure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I live by truth and honesty and fluidity. I like to tell people that if you have a question, you better want the answer because you're going to get it like in all its detail. And, but I've learned to let people come to the well of wisdom and draw the water instead of splash them when they walk by, which I used to do. But I've learned. So now you won't get wet around me unless you want to. Like, all right.
You're like, come on in, the water's fine.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So what did that look like when you're out there and you're splashing and you're making those kind of like waves?
Well, people would think I'm crazy, because it would always be the wrong audience.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to tap and tune into individuals that were in hell with me. And I'm like, well, I have this fire to change and I'm getting out of here, and look at all these connections and look at all this like in depth and philosophy that's in the world and these angles and perspectives and look what we can do. And then they would always just look at me like I'm crazy because I never fit in with them, like I'm not the drug addict and the alcoholic, and I'm not over here, committing crimes and felonies and just living in the depths, like on the street, which I've had my fair share of living on the streets and being homeless because I didn't know anything other than that world.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how, even though I knew this world existed, I didn't know how to get into it. Although something within me told me, just keep going and have faith and you'll make it there, assuming I don't fall off the path. And so anyway, how I go on my little tangents, it'd be just too much for these individuals to comprehend. I mean, most of them, they don't have, even reading comprehension, like high intellect, not to sound like mean or anything, but it was just an uneducated world in which I was in.
Yeah.
To where the better I did, the more I was looked at like I was the POS. And that I was going nowhere in life.
Talk about bizarro world. That's insane.
Yeah. Like literally. Like, so I would try to get straight A's. I would try to be the perfect child. I would try to do everything exactly how society deems a normal individual. And the more I was that way, the more they all hated me and rejected me. And so the more I tried to be myself, I mean, it got to the point where I was so tired of trying to be me that I just gave in. I literally gave in, and then I tried to, I lowered myself, as I called, like, to the depths of like stupidity to match them, and they still didn't even accept me. So it's just like I was never going to win.
Yeah.
Which then I learned better to be yourself and repel the wrong people and attract the right people than to just be miserable and someone you're not, to even attempt to fit in when you still don't. Because there's always that dissonance. You only resonate when you're with those you should be around. It's a lesson I've learned.
I love it. That's such a powerful lesson. I feel like that's been a theme of the week for me. I've had that pop up several times with people talking about trying to change themselves to fit into a group. And it's like they're not going to like you anyways.
Right.
And I always think about the old Christmas show. I used to watch it all the time as a kid, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Did you ever seen that? The claymation Rudolph.
Mm-hmm.
So, he puts on the fake nose and everybody like kind of makes fun of him anyways. He talks funny. He's uncomfortable. And then the nose falls off and everybody's like, ha ha, we knew there was a reason why we disliked you. We knew there was a reason you were different.
Right.
So they didn't like him when he was trying to fit in.
Yeah.
And then when the secret came out, they're like, aha, we that was the reason we didn't like you.
Exactly.
So don't try to impress those people. Go out and find your tribe.
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So, and it just impresses me because you being a little kid battling like your whole entire, like all your surroundings.
Yes. So unfortunately, I was in this home situation where the internal home didn't like me. When I went to my birth mother's and her world, I didn't like it and it didn't like me because I'm literally like a little child trying to parent the parents and telling them what to do and being like, don't swear, don't do drugs, like just take care of us, feed us. Like, it's silly as it sounds, but like that was the world it was. And so when then I was in school too, it's like I was a fly on the wall. It's like I could sit with any group in grade school, it seemed, but I could always tell there was like this dissonance, like I was never actually accepted. I wasn't amongst them or like of them, So it was just, I just grew up literally observing everyone and everything. And I was really quiet too. So it's like I was mute almost in a way. And as I got older, I became an extrovert. Like I couldn't stop talking. So it's like I went from one extreme to the other, and then I had to learn to become Hathaway in between, neutral in the middle, to learn when to speak, learn when to listen. So I didn't have community, unfortunately. I didn't have really, a family. So it was, and I didn't have close friends at all. Like I had acquaintances and, would see the people, see some, kids here and there, but you could always tell that they didn't really like me.
Yeah.
And then at least that's how it felt. And in their actions, it expressed that. So but I always knew there was another side. I like to say, like a pendulum always swings from one side to the other as long as, inertia doesn't get in its way to stop that swing. So I always knew if I just kept going that I will experience the equal and opposite of what I had experienced the first part of my life. So now I have community and I have people. I have more people in my life than I can even manage. Like it's crazy. Everywhere I go to events and I just run into people I know somehow. And I'm like, how are you even here? Like this makes no sense. And I just always have people reaching out to me. I don't know. It's literally night and day. And had I not held on and had that faith, I wouldn't be here. I mean, shoot, been at the depths of the end where I wanted the end. So, like 3 times, truly. And it was like whenever I was at the end, I'd cry out to God and just like beg for the end. And whatever rooted me to get to that lowest point where I was just like basically surrendering to evil, like take me now, like you won. And then all of a sudden within like 3 days, it's always like a 3-day time span. It's so strange. Whatever it was that got me to that lowest point, like whatever was that pinnacle point to push me over the edge would appear like magic. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. It was like God would just grab me and take me and throw me to where I needed to be, because you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And I had to go through so much in order to learn, and increase like my gut instinct and that discernment to know like this is evil rooted or this is like love rooted. Mm-hmm. This is, because I look at everything like a spiritual war within.
Yep.
And it's either, like the devil or like evil is trying to capture you through whether it be temptation or, dangling what you think you might want right in front of you, but it's just a mask of not what you need. And then there's love and truth and purity. And it's up to you to decide, like in this warplane, really, which is life, and which direction you're going to go. And I only ever knew the depths of hell and evil. So like I always went after it like comfort, because that's all I knew. Although something in me always told me there was another side. I didn't know how to get there yet.
Yeah.
So only until it was presented to me and I finally like got a taste for it, then I knew I could really see that discernment. Okay, I need to go over here. And it was like every time I was at the end, God would grab me and bring me over there. So then it would like take me to a different level I didn't know of. Almost kind of like, I've looked at it like, like a ping pong, like a machine, you pull it.
Yeah.
And then it shoots.
Oh, it shoots. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it had to go down a little bit, retract, and then you shoot forward. So it was like I would come down to the depths and then all of a sudden I would shoot back up because I wasn't supposed to be down there, but I didn't know how to get up. I didn't know. But I never gave up because, we don't have time for that. But,
Yeah.
Yeah, I could go on many angles and details of this, so it's hard.
I'm like on the edge of my seat.
Here. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I don't know. Just through time, I've learned that discernment. And
what was and you'd mentioned like when you kind of saw the light, or when you got around the light, or what was that kind of first experience where you're like, oh, there is another side?
Someone I met actually introduced optimism and positivity to me. It wasn't until someone told me, hey, everything you say is rooted in negativity. Even though my intent was always positive, I didn't even know the language of what it was like to be positive. And I could never understand, why does everyone dislike me when all I'm trying to do is give love and be loving and be, a friend to everyone? And it wasn't until like in hindsight that I saw it's because of my language that I was using. So then they helped me understand the principles of like neuro-linguistic programming and to retrain the brain from being a victim to a victor. So then through repetition, and I didn't like it at first because, like when you are attacking, darkness with light, it's like freaks out and it's like, get away from me, like almost like an exorcism, like it needs to come out of you and you fight it.
Yeah.
And then I just let it happen. Like I let them parent me like the parent I never had, in the sense of like, anytime I said something negative, they wouldn't even continue the conversation until I repeated it in a positive. And it went on for about 6 months. And the first few months were like, just
frustrating.
I hate this person, but I know I need this. So it was interesting. But yeah, then after about 6 months, just someone.
Yeah.
Just someone.
It's just incredible.
God brings you your teacher. When the
Absolutely.
student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah.
And they appeared when I was ready to finally start to see the other side of the world that I always knew within existed. And so then about 6 months into that process, I started doing it all on my own. And then it switched, because the muscle or the brain is a muscle. And through repetition, you build strength, and the new neural pathways built over the myelin sheathing just, started to get denser over the old pathways. And then, the victimhood went out the window and the victorious Abigail became born.
I love how pathways and Hathways.
Yes, half the way to the pathway.
Yeah, I love it. I love talking about neuro-linguistic programming and like recreating the past for the neuroelectric, like it takes those repetitions. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of frustration, but anybody can change their thoughts. And when you change your thoughts, you change your actions, you change your beliefs, like you change everything.
Right. Yeah. Repetition is key. And without it, I mean, like I ended up through my years, at one stage of my life, they call me Jackie All Trades. I've done so much, but in one of those chapters, I was a personal trainer. And I would tell my clients all the time when we were in the gym, it's like, you have to, break down the muscle to build it back up.
Yep.
And same goes with character. The brain, people don't look at the brain as that muscle too, but you have to break it down to build it back up. And every time you do that, you're strengthening it. Whether it's a good habit or a bad habit, you're breaking it down and building it back up. You're strengthening it. So like say you're eating ice cream every day, like I used to. I had an ice cream addiction. I went from my freshman 15, turned to 150 within like a year and a half. Because I couldn't stop eating ice cream. But it's not like I just started at a tub a day. Like it was like one ice cream sandwich to the next, and then it built up over time. And then I'm eating like a tub a day and, a couple boxes of treats. Like I couldn't stop. But through repetition, like I broke down my old habits and then I rebuilt this new habit. And then it was the same in the reversal process. I had to just break it down and rebuild in a different direction. And then I lost 160 pounds, became a personal trainer. So I've always had like these ebbs and these flows. And one thing I've noticed a pattern in my life, I always have to live extremes 3 times. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't learn. But I'm starting to think that it's not that I didn't learn. I didn't learn everything that I was supposed to learn.
Yeah.
And also because it builds that strength. So every time I go through a pattern, it shows me more, builds my perspective, and then it's by the 3rd time it becomes so strong I don't ever go back. Because then it's like, okay, now I really have that ability to relate to others as well. Because had I've only done it once, okay, well, I've done it twice. I've done it 3 times. I've gone through patterns of rebuilding my whole life, patterns of weight loss, and like I'm on my journey right now, you know, back down. This is the 3rd time. I even made a joke, well, everything happens in 3s. It's going to happen one more time. And sure enough, COVID happened, and then it did. So I'm pleased to say I'm in my gold dress that I've been holding on to for 2 years to fit into again. And today's the first day I wore it. Because
that's awesome.
I was like, today's the day. So, do or die. You have to have that mentality. Like, no matter what, I'm going to reach this goal. And over time, it builds strength.
What was that? And kind of fast forwarding here, because like we had that conversation in we were geared up and we were like, yeah, I'm going to have you on. And then you sent me a really good, thoughtful email about, not now is not the time. And I totally respected that. But I was so excited when you reached out to me with, oh my God, so many things are changing. What happened in that time period?
So I was in, the depths of hell. And I was still stuck, although God was trying to pull me out. It was like that third pattern, that 3rd time of it, where I was in this very toxic relationship that literally just was sucking my soul. And I knew there's no way, because I lost my light. Like, when you become gaslit to an extent, like you question yourself, you question everything about you, you become depressed, then, I blew up like a balloon again. And my soul knew that I cannot even attempt to share the light that I have within me when it's just an ember. It needs to be a roaring flame in order for it to be impactful in any way, let alone for myself. And also, I don't like to be a hypocrite. I can't go out here and spread, positivity when I'm over here behind the scenes. It's one of the most negative states I've been in years, because if you don't stay consistent and stay with that discipline, then you fall off. You lose that momentum, and then you go back into the depths of hell. And then you have to learn to climb back up. But I've fallen off. Like, since I've learned heaven on earth and saw that I was born in hell and, got to the other side, I've literally fallen off and came back, and this is the 3rd time. Now I'm back on that upward trajectory because I got myself out of that situation. It's actually something you said when we talked that day. I can't remember what it was, but I remember how it made me feel. like usual. You know, we never remember what people say, but we remember how it makes us feel.
I popped the Maya Angelou quote in my head as soon as you said that. Yeah, yep.
And I remember walking out of there and being like, it's done. It's done. And I ended it with that guy. And I've just been on this upward path ever since. I've been losing all this weight ever since. It's like I've re-embodied my spirit again. All of that brain fog, of that gaslighting, you know, it just disappeared. And I was like, how did I forget who I am? How did I forget even my Abigailisms that I used to say on a daily basis? Like, how does that escape you?
Yeah.
It's because we're in a spiritual war, you know, and really when we look within, we can have like a parasitic force, whatever you want to call it, take a hold of us slowly. It's literally a parasite. You don't know the parasite's killing the host until the host is dead. And then, yeah.
It really does. It isn't like a switch. Like one day you're fine, the next day you're not. I think, and that's why it catches you, right? Because it is a slow, it's like it gets in and it's like little habits here and there that they all accumulate.
Yeah. And through that repetition, it builds strength. And then all of a sudden that's your new world. That's your new perception. That's your new view on life and the new lens in which you look through, because you didn't realize slowly over time it was occurring. Like the lobster, you know, analogy, the lobster doesn't know it's going to die because when it's put in the water, it's cold. And then it slowly boils and all of a sudden it's dead. And that's what was happening to me. And so you were brought in that whole journey that I was on at that chapter to then ignite that back to make me see like, okay, as soon as someone on the outside told me, it's like sometimes that's what you need to see. Because it's not like I have family to go to and be like, hey, you know, this is my situation. I have to figure it out all on my own, you know. And I have this community now, but it's still, you know, in its infant stages, you know. And I can't just go, I don't know. I mean, I could go to just a random stranger and be like, hey, you know, this is my situation. What should I do? But they don't know me, or it's not going to hit the same way as when you're told organically, like how it was with you. I just was being honest. Yeah. And that came through and I needed it. So thank you.
It was my pleasure. And like I said, when I got that email, because, you know, it was a couple months went by and all of a sudden out of the blue, you sent me this email about how whatever it was that I said or whatever question I asked or whatever, he spurred you and you went out and you dumped the guy and then you're like, and I'm running marathons and I'm like getting my life, you know, like 5Ks, like five, marathon. Sorry, I don't know the difference. How long is a marathon? Is it like
26.2 or something? I don't know. Don't quote me on this. I don't know because I've never done one.
5Ks. So. But it's so cool how, it's an honor for me and it gives me chills and gets me emotional when you say that. So it's my pleasure to be in that right place at the right time and to have God put me in that spot.
Yeah. So it's like that broke me open. And then ever since, God is just showing me sign after sign after sign after sign of what I'm supposed to do, that it's time to share my story no matter the consequences. Because I always had that fear that, especially being in Brighton, like the community that ostracized me, like for me to then come back to it, I'm finally gaining them as a community for the first time, and now I'm going to share all of it with everyone.
Open up all of Abigail.
Yeah. It's like, okay, am I going to just get ostracized again? Everything I've attempted to build like over the past like year and a half. And, but you know, I don't care because I learned that, well, and God showed me too about leaving that legacy and what my purpose is for.
Yeah.
It's like how I just share my story with individuals and it's going to spark something in somebody that is going to then help them on their journey. And even if I just touch one person, which, no, I somehow I'm touching more people. Well, that sounds bad, but you know what I mean? Igniting their souls.
Appropriately, yeah. Yes. Igniting their souls.
Yeah, that now they're coming to the surface to tell their stories. What had they not met me in that moment, would they have? You know, and now I'm seeing the actual ripple that I can have by just truly being my most authentic self on all levels. Because I'll tell anyone anything individually.
Yeah.
But there's just something about it being recorded to where we can review this. And I'm just like, all right.
It'll exist online forever.
Yes, exactly. And it's like, I have fear. Like, am I going to say everything the right way? See, look at the right way at the right time.
Yeah.
And, but then I realized, you know, through time, I can elucidate and provide more detail. And one day there will be a book, Hathaway to Success, and that will outline more. And then even from there, Hathaway to Success 2.0.
Well, I love it because we had this conversation and you're like, what if I don't get everything? And it's like, first off, you're assuming this is the only time you'd ever be invited on.
Right. Yeah. See, exactly.
Like when we
time?
limit our minds with like that, it's I've got to get it all out. It's like, I think of my grandma grew up in the Great Depression, and like her growing, like whenever we were at her house, we had to eat all the food on the plate, and there was like a certain mentality of you can't waste, or we're never going to be here again, right? And it's that fear of missing out, and that thing of like, what if I don't do it all right, or what if I don't do it perfect? Like, go do it,
right?
Because there's always going to be more opportunities.
Exactly. And it's a great way you saying that because it's a survival mode. And I was in survivor mode, like literally fight or flight my whole life.
Yep.
Like just up until I finally got to a point of stability. But it took over 30 years for me to get to that point. I've only been, quote unquote, what people perceive as stable since my current position that I received, at WCC.
Yeah.
Which gave me income, a home. Like the first time of not being homeless in years, I finally renewed a lease on my condo. Like what? Like I stayed somewhere longer than a week, a month. It's just, it's a completely different dynamic now. I have, good job, community, a car.
I say when one of the times we were talking, you just got a new car, right?
Yeah. When we met up and I shared my story with you the first time, I got the new car and I'm like, all right, now I got a safe car. And for the first time, I guess I've had other safe cars because nothing ever happened to any of them. They just weren't, what people perceive as safe or new or, So, but it's
you have stuff that you never, maybe you did because you always knew there'd be another side. But at the same time, it's got to be hard to picture. It's got to be hard to like put yourself in that situation and feel like I've got a nice condo, I've got this new car, I've got this.
Yeah. Like honestly, when I was leaving work and walking in my car, I kind of had like this like deja vu moment looking at it. And I'm like, oh, this is mine? Like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
Because my whole life I'm used to only using whatever's been given to me. Like even to the point where like when I, like the months of homelessness walking the streets, like when I just went from like span the country, California all the way to the East Coast in Boston, made my way back to California. When I ate, like it was what people fed me, which is crazy. I learned after the fact, the verse in the Bible, how, it talks about like never be fearful of not having because God will always provide for his children, like the birds and, the animals out there. They're not worried of not having clothing, where their next meal is coming from. They're always going to be protected. Unless, statistics comes into play and probabilities and they somehow, the deer gets hit by the car, which is a thing. But for the most part, like if you're just living pure and you're living as the most righteous as you can live rooted in love, really, somehow this world reflects in a way back to you that'll always provide for you. Like the craziest thing happened, like as an example of that, I'm literally in the laundromat in California somewhere just washing because everything I owned was on my back. And I'm literally just putting in my one load of laundry. And all of a sudden this man comes up. I don't know who he was or where he came from. And he was so frantic. And he was just like, are you homeless? I just feel like you're homeless. Something's telling me I need to come over here and buy you food. And I was like, well, yeah. And he's like, okay, well, my girlfriend's in the store and she's just going to freak out if she knows I'm doing this. But there's a burger place right there in the parking lot. Just hurry. Like, I just have to buy you food. And I'm like, where's this coming from? No context. I never looked at this man. Like I'm literally down in the washing machine, putting my stuff in here. And he just out of the blue, then I go over, I just order a simple meal. He swipes his card and he runs out of there so fast. And I'm like, what is this? Like the 4.5 months I was like literally just walking the streets and going from place to place, and I only ever got a hotel room twice with the pennies in my pocket, because somehow, some way, someone was always there without me asking to provide me shelter or food or transportation, or, just by me being my pure self and sharing my story. And It's interesting though, because in those times it was like the most joy I've ever had. Like, you know, like you would think, oh, you're homeless and you have nothing, Abigail, and you're happy. And I'm like, yeah, because it was just me and God. I called the journey Guided by God. So I made sure to listen and to my gut and tune in my instincts, that discernment of knowing if this decision in this path was evil or if this decision in this path was love. So I learned how to, it's going to sound crazy, but like communicate and interact with God in this world of man. Like one time I was lost in the streets of California. I'm walking and all of a sudden I was like, God, I can't remember which way that like I came from. Like, which way do I go? And then all of a sudden, a flock of birds comes out of the bushes to the left. More birds than they can fit into this bush. All right. Like magic. It felt like Harry Potter. Okay. And I'm like, okay, thank you. I need to go left. Sure enough, I go left. And there's my destination where I originated from, or, you know, the journey began that time, that walk that I was on. But, you know, I was just like, wow. And then, so then it took away all that fear, you know, of so many people in life are rooted in this fear. But when you really have faith and you surrender to love, just something happens to where you're always protected in a way that like fear destroys and love builds, you know, and like taking risks. You can take risks when you have no fear. And in order to live your most pure self, you have to break the boundaries that man has created in order to then, you know, live your pure self. And I don't know if I'm making sense right now. I know I'm all over the place. There's so much I want to say, ergo the book that needs to be written. Yeah. You know, of all these concepts and constructs that I've learned and observed through just interacting with the world, you know, because I didn't have that external influence because I had no family. At that point, I had no friends. I had no community. Like I could have probably died. Not anyone would know. Like when I was at that point, you know, on the streets and stuff.
Did you ever think about that?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because I'm just like.
Because if something happens to you, who knows?
Right. No one would know. And I look at it kind of like on a physical, like quantum type way. I don't know. I like to put all the disciplines together to create a full picture and understanding of something. And when I started to like, because it's like I was disassociated from society. And as I started to reassociate myself, I saw how each little decision I made would like profoundly impact everything around me. And how they say you are the sum of the 5 closest people in your life. As I started letting people come in, since I started with nothing, no one, just myself, me and God, then as I would bring people in, I saw how just having one person and who they were and their character and their habits and stuff would directly impact me. And I'm like, wow. So it's true because I started collecting that empirical evidence over time. So then I started being intricate and more like, discerning of who I brought in. But without building that strength through repetition, I would fall back down because I would know nothing else. And since, let's say, this new world was so extreme for me from what I'm used to, I only ever knew the comforts of hell. I only ever knew the neglect and abuse of even myself. Like I continued the cycles because I didn't know.
Yeah.
I never grew up witnessing love, compassion, empathy, care. You know, like there were times if I was at my birth mother's house on the weekends, it's like, okay, if you're going to eat, because I'm making my own food to eat, which then I ended up loving to cook. And I went to culinary school at one point. And so in hindsight, though, I'm grateful for my experience because I've learned so much. I have so many skills now. I have so much knowledge of just a little bit of everything and I enjoy life in a way that, I don't know, had I been grown up in a family, I would have been probably so molded by who they were and wanted me to be versus now I just get to be this pure like, oh, I can be whomever I want to be, however I want to be, whenever I want to be, wherever I want to be, you know?
Well, it's probably like, especially taking that path with just you and God, it's probably a lot of time to really figure out who is Abigail Hathaway? Who are you?
Mm-hmm. I told myself I'm not going to root myself somewhere and come back until I know who I am, my character, my values, and what I'll die for. And I learned integrity is my number one, because who are we without our word? All I had on that journey was literally the love in my heart and my word, and that's it. And I saw what that provided. And not even through asking, I never asked. I remember like 2.5 months in, I'm like, how has everything been given to me or provided? And I never asked for a single thing, not once. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to test this theory, not even knowing these were biblical principles at the time, because I mean, I found God in a whole nother way. And then I went to a church, and then I learned, whoa, this is everything I've learned and said. Every time I go into a church, I've experienced before it was ever presented to me. So then I like really have that backing.
Yeah.
You know, feel the weight of the truth of it. But anyway, God will always supply to you what it is you need and when you need it. Because yeah, we may be asking, you know, even whether it's internal to God or external to other people, like, can I have this? Can I have that? Well, what if you actually got everything you wanted?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
It could derail you from the person you're supposed to be or why you're here. I know I look at everything on a level of energy, and we don't want to create an internal dissonance, you know, from our own misunderstandings. So I learned just to not ask, and now everything has been supplied, because the only thing I've actually, never mind, I don't know if that's too dark for this show.
No, go ahead.
Well, like, I want to say, like, the only thing I've ever truly begged God for was literally to kill me at those depths.
Yep.
At those darkest moments, like when the devil or evil just had me, this parasitic force had me so much, I wanted to give up. But I couldn't physically do it. Just like how someone can't, like, you know, like bite off your own finger. Like I couldn't kill myself.
So you're just hoping for something to strike you down, or not waking up and you know, not waking up in the morning.
Right. Just something like, just, I don't even know how. I never fathomed
really
it, like to that extent, when I would truly beg God, just kill me now, please. I'm done. Like, I have no family. I have no community. I have no friends. I have nothing. I've been living in poverty. Only slumlords will rent to me. Like, I can't get out of hell to save my life. And those most darkest moments of innocence, you know, just truly like, just end it, God. Those are the only times I've asked for something that God was like, here, like, here you go. Like one time I was like begging for family. I was alone on Thanksgiving, and it was just, I didn't even have a boyfriend at the time. Like I had nowhere to go, and I was just miserable. Like I was at my end, one of them. That was the second time, but I like cried out to God, like, just end it. It was the first time I actually Googled, how do you end your life without pain or something? Like, I don't even know. And then obviously Google pops up all these red things and like messages, call this number. And I'm like, whatever. And I exited it, and I was just crying out. And 3 days later, I had an aunt on my 23andMe reach out that was in a closed adoption. No one knew she was ever born. And I'm like, what? 3 days later? Like, and then another instance was when I was at my end. This was just last year. And I was really, you know, just, that was the darkest one, where I was actually looking to reallocate all my resources to get, to fly to Belgium to get euthanized, because I couldn't do it myself. And then I just remember laying there. Yeah, well, this makes the story really messed up. So sorry if I'm traumatizing someone. But I called the legal guardian that I had, you know, the court appointed me growing up. And I told him, I was like, you know what, I'm saying goodbye. Like, I'm done. Like, this is it. This is the end. I'm selling everything off. This is my plan. And I don't know why I told him, because, I mean, it's not like I knew he was just going to make me feel worse about myself. So, but I was like serious at this point. And all he says to me was, oh, there's closer places than Belgium that you can go. And I'm like, wow. All right. So, you know, I'm like crying. I'm bawling my eyes out all night. And then that night, I almost fell asleep, and something like jolted me awake. And something in my gut told me if I fall asleep right now, I'm not waking up. And so I just begged God to basically like save me from this and just give me a job. Like, please. Because at that point, I was getting my master's and, I was still just had no community, had no friends. Like, I was in that horrible, like, gaslighting relationship. That was my connection to the world. And so like living, like I was making like less than $1,000 a month trying to live on my own in this economy. This was just last year.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, because I tried to find a job for over 4 months, full time, all day, every day on the computer, like something that wouldn't be insulting to me and pay me minimum wage, something where I could actually grow and build and have a life,
Yeah.
the one that matches me and doesn't keep me in this hell. And sure enough, just a few days later, all of a sudden, I get a call from WCC.
And had you applied, or did they just reach out to you somehow?
I applied, but I don't remember applying. That's the weirdest part. Oh, well, sorry if anyone sees this,
Yeah.
but I don't remember applying. And they called me, and I was like, yes, I'll take the interview. And then I like frantically go in my email, and I'm like, what job did I even apply for?
What job did I apply for?
I don't know. And I'm like reading the job description once I found it. And I start bawling my eyes out because I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get this job. I don't feel qualified for this. And I almost didn't go. I almost didn't go to the interview. I didn't even like get dressed up. I went casual too when I did go because then I realized, you know what? I'll go for practice. I'll let them tell me no instead of me telling me no. Because I tell everyone that. Always let someone else tell you no before you tell you no. Don't tell you no before you get a no. It could be a yes.
Yeah.
So I followed my own advice and I went. And I mean, sure, I somehow, some way. Long story short, I won't go into all the details, but they asked for another interview, asked for my portfolio. So from all that I've done, I put it together. And then I flew out to Colorado for my hooding ceremony for my master's. And I just remember going to plug my phone in. I was going to take a nap before the ceremony because I just flew in, and I see I had an email from them, and I click on it, and it was my offer letter. And I just start freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, God did it. Like, so the only times I ever asked for something was like in the greatest depths of darkness, in pure innocence. And then God delivered it because it's almost in a way like God knew I gave up, but I always knew I wasn't supposed to give up. But it's like, how do you carry on truly when you have no one and nothing? And it's love. It's love. You have to learn to love yourself. That's how you carry on. And then learn to find a way to always transmutate that trauma into triumph and always see the silver lining. I like to call it the juicing method. And any point of like trauma or a low situation you're in, you take that and like in your mind, feed it through a juicer and get rid of all the rind, get rid of all the gunk that situation caused or provided, and take the juice, because that juice is filled with nutrients and, life. It's life juice, and you drink it. And that's what provides you life, not the rind, not the orange. You peel the orange, you don't eat the outside, you eat the inside. That provides life and nutrients and vitamins. So I like to do that with everything. And it's a way to just always stay positive because you like, for example, like when someone cuts you off in traffic, people love this.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh, what a beep, beep, beep. And it's like, what if that person just prevented you in, further down? Had you been 10 seconds further down at some point in your life?
Yeah.
What if you would have gotten T-boned? What if a tree would have fallen? You don't know what that person just did to prevent something from occurring. So I always look at it as divine intervention.
I love it. Yep.
So it's just like everything comes to you for a point of extraction to learn and grow from. And I mean, the hardest parts are when you're at your lowest, but always knowing that there's an equal and opposite reaction if you just allow the pendulum to swing to the other side and don't let yourself get in the way or someone else get in the way, because you always have a choice. Decisions design your destiny. And So yeah, I'm just rambling.
No, I love it. Decisions. Yeah. And like, it's even going back to making the decision to allow someone to coach you to the point where it's frustrating and like they're making you rephrase what you're saying over and over again. Because there's so many people that, again, even growing up around who you are and who around the surroundings you did, and then even not even realizing how negative you are.
Yeah.
It's so easy to just be like, screw this.
Right. Exactly. And had they not said that to me, I would have never even known that that was the language I was using. I wouldn't know that there was another level of language out there.
You probably considered yourself pretty positive.
Because I felt it.
Yeah.
My intent was always positive. And that's also another thing, like never judging someone at the surface, because even if they are coming off negative, their heart might actually be in the right place.
Absolutely.
It just doesn't sound like it.
Yep.
It's interesting.
So I've asked so many guests if they've ever read the book The Alchemist, and I love that. Like it's impactful for you. So I love I love being able to dive into this conversation. And so for you, how did you find The Alchemist?
It was on that journey, being guided by God. I was on the streets, and as they say, the teacher appears when the student is ready. I walked into Barnes & Noble, and I was 25 years old at the time. And there's just this display of The Alchemist, the 25th anniversary edition. And of course, me seeing the sign, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm the alchemist. I used to say it all the time. We're alchemists of our own lives. And I can transmutate my lead into gold. My lead might be different than your lead, but we all have the ability to transmutate our lead into gold in life, the juicing method, however you want to look at it. And I don't know, I picked that book up and I bought it with, some money I had in my pocket. I went outside, I sat there and I read the whole thing. And it was captivating because it was my story. And in essence, it's all of our stories, if we just view it in that right way. And
absolutely.
And I just got goosebumps. And it's interesting because, well, I don't want to spoil the book, but like at the end, like the treasure is found in your own backyard. That's when I realized I have to come back to Michigan. And that's when I came back to Brighton. And I ended up getting...
I've got goosebumps now. That's awesome. Yeah.
Full circle.
Yeah.
And I ended up taking some of the money I had. I was living with a friend in her basement. And I was like, you know what? I'm an entrepreneur because I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. And because I want to, build and lead a business. And every time I had an idea, I'd attempt to turn it into something. And before I had to pay to put your info online, like when I started a clown company, I was booked in 2 weeks of me posting online. I was booked for the whole summer.
Wow.
Yeah. It just cost like $15 to put the website up. Now, all the intricate stuff and all the money you have to pay just for it to get seen on Google. But
yeah.
So it's different now. But anyway, I get an office downtown Brighton, and I'm like, only if you knew like all of the things that led up to it, because the person I was living in their basement was that family's like close friend. And since I was living there, they rented it to me before I even signed a lease or anything. Like they just trusted me, and I'm like telling them all my entrepreneurial ideas. And I found a way to make the money for that place. And then I just started my entrepreneurial journey from there. And then I, had my ebbs and flows. And anytime my business, because I started a cleaning company, a way to clean, because we have a way to clean more for you. More being motor, office, residential, and etc. So it covered everything.
Yeah.
And just through word of mouth, I started getting so much business. I couldn't physically handle it. But then the fear set in. I was afraid to hire anybody because of liability, because the world I grew up in, I knew how the majority of those type of people were.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not dealing with that. I'm trying to make it to the other side here. I'm not going to
pull it in.
Yeah.
Pull in a new surrounding of 5 people that you're around all the time.
Exactly. Because of how impactful their energy will be. And so then at that time too, I was on my fitness journey. So I wanted to also be a coach. So I had these 3 C's. It was cleaning, coaching, and consulting. So all at once, I filed for 3 LLCs: A Way to Clean, Hathaway Coaching, and Uniway Universal. Because we're all universally one way within, which is rooted through love, if we really want to tap into that. And so because I just always had this like business mindset, and if you knew all my education and my experience and my background leading up to this point, I knew I could like leverage it in order to help other people. Yeah. So I wanted to be like a life coach, a personal trainer, and to help keep clean people, well, internally and externally. Because when I was on the Guided by God trip, when people would let me stay, like strangers would just let me stay in their homes, and they would leave me there, even when they go to to work the next day. It's like, you don't know me. Like, you don't know me. And when they would leave, in order for me to say thank you, I just clean their whole home, because it was people that usually didn't have like, the nicest, or something happened, like some sort of, like trauma happened to where they couldn't keep up. And I would just help, like clean, organize, do the just anything, even if it's little. And they were always so thankful. And I like to look at out here as a reflection of in here. So it's like if we refresh the outside, it'll help refresh the inside, and vice versa. If we're refreshing in here, it's going to refresh out here. And so I started the cleaning company in order to help people that were down and depressed, like have like a leg up, because I know how hard it is. When I was in my darkest moments, I couldn't clean my house. It's like I was living in a dumpster, like you couldn't even do the most basic things to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So I just knew that if I could help people do that, it would help them internally, which went into the coaching aspect, like, okay, so now we're going to get the outside cleaned up. Let's get the inside cleaned up, And
I love that alignment.
Yeah.
You wouldn't necessarily put it together. Like,
right.
But that's really cool. You're cleaning up the inside and the outside.
Mind, body, and soul.
Oh,
so Uniway Universal, the soul aspect, because soul entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Soul proprietorship. Anyway, it's all wordplay too. You have to have fun.
Yeah, you have to have fun.
So then I got the inside cleaned up. So then, because at that time too, I was at my most fit. I was just I worked out every day. I ended up getting a mountain bike when I was, walking the streets. So I guess riding the streets at this point. And I still had like a Planet Fitness membership, like $10 or however much it was, like I made sure to always find enough money to have that, to keep that, because that's where I'd shower. That's where I would go and work out. And since I had the mountain bike, wherever I was staying, I would always find the closest Planet Fitness. And I'd wake up at 5 a.m. because I always wanted to be part of the 5 a.m. club.
Yeah.
And I would just ride, whether it would be 15 miles, 30 miles, whatever the closest Planet Fitness was. I'd get there and I'd work out. So I came back like just
beast mode,
literally.
Yeah.
Mentality, body, and like literally knowing my values and my character, what I'll die for. Because I said I'm not going to reassimilate or reassociate to the world until I know who I am. But then I'm falling off again with COVID and all of that, and the quarantine, and how that started that downway spiral there. I had to learn that I wasn't as strong as I thought. I had to I had to fight and regain it, because it's like, and also what kind of story would it have been if I just made it and then like nothing else happened? It's like,
and again, going back to The Alchemist, it's literally your story. No, I'm not. No, like I'm not saying what you're saying is awesome, but like going back to that for the people listening, like if you haven't read the book, read the book. But like it's your story, right? Because it's not linear,
right?
It's not like, okay, I'm going to search for my personal legend and I'm just going to go find it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And then like he gets stuck in the shop selling, right? And he's having all the success, the crystal shop, and
you forget why you're there.
You forget why you're there.
Yeah.
Right? And you could get seduced and stay there.
Right.
But then that's usually when bad things start happening.
Exactly. And then that's what happened to me. And then I went down, and you and a few other things broke me out, truly. And now I'm on my way back up.
Super amazing. And I love when we started talking about the podcast, and we were talking about your office and everything, and you're like, what's so cool is you literally watch this place be put up, because your office is like...
Yes, I saw when Rob opened the doors and he moved in, the sign went up because my window was facing it. And I was like, oh, new neighbors.
Yeah.
And then I used to eat all the time at Stouts there.
Yeah, right here, yeah.
Right here.
Right over this wall somewhere.
Yeah. So I would always see him come and go at times. But at that point, I didn't have... There's still parts of me that I didn't have, to where now I'll just walk up to him and be like, hi, welcome, welcome to the neighborhood, versus then it was there was still that fear, like I was unworthy to even talk to people in a way or expand that network because I didn't have that muscle. It's like I was so used to talking to people and how I could go up to anyone. But also too, I could go up to anyone in a business setting, but since I don't know, there was just like something like preventing me.
With a little voice.
Yeah. I ignored the little voice because the little voice kept telling me to introduce myself or say hi. And
Yep. But usually when we hesitate, our mind fills in the reason, right? Like there's got to be, and it's like, oh, well, you know, they don't want to hear from you, or like, who are you? And, you know, like, it's like if we start making like excuses or reasons why that wouldn't be a good idea.
Right. I like to call it the lightning is that first initial thought, and that's what you listen to, but then the thoughts are the thunder. Ooh. And then the thunder just takes away from the lightning, you know, and you have to act on that first one.
Yep.
First thought.
If not, because then again, and then what's crazy is like it becomes who you are, and you say things like, I'm a person that doesn't follow through. I'm a person that doesn't put myself in these situations. Like, oh, I'm not good at talking, you know, whatever. And I'm not saying you did, but people do. Like we start rationalizing all these things.
Yeah. You begin to adopt the identity that you give yourself or other people give you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cause it's like, it's almost like because I fell off the wagon or however you want to put it, I felt like I wasn't as worthy as I was when I was at my peak state. So that prevented me from like certain growth opportunities. And also too, it wasn't until I really got connected with the chamber did I really see like the world and the world of interaction on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if someone was presented in front of me or approached me, I could talk to them all day long, whoever it was. Or if I like zeroed in on someone and was like, I'm going to talk to them and make it a point, then I could talk to them. But it wasn't like now, like I'll say hi to anyone and everyone walking by on the streets.
Yeah.
It's just, there's just, I don't know.
It's a shift.
Oh yeah, a shift, and a layer has been removed to where it's like, live omnipotent within this world, you know, because why not?
What's so cool is like, we're always evolving. You know, and I know when I have you back on at some point, there's going to be even more that like you're going to reflect at what we talked about here, and you'll be like, oh my God, there was more lids. There was more things that we lifted. Right.
Yeah. Cause the different chapters. And I know now that I'm in this like new world, as I call it, it's exponential and it's going into a realm that it's unfathomable, you know, and that's how you know it's from God, cause you can't fathom it. It's like magic.
Huge.
Yeah. But it's interesting because, you know, I ended up in Brighton in that office, and had that never happened, like it's interesting because when I was in that office, I ended up seeing like the chamber building, and I was like, that's the goal. Like I felt like that was going to be the pinnacle of everything. Like I'm going to build a business and I'm going to end up at, you know, being part of the Chamber of Commerce here. And long story short, all this crazy stuff happened. I basically got kicked back out of Brighton because of something that happened downtown. And it was just like, this is why I left Brighton to begin with. And I was just so angry at Brighton when that happened. And I ended up down in Ypsilanti, and had that never happened, then I would have never had that job at WCC. And by me getting that job at WCC, I became involved in the chamber.
I was going to say, it brought you back.
Right, exactly, because I asked for it, like in innocence during that, because I was in that office there, across the street when I begged God, you know, the second time for the end, and I asked for all that in innocence, and then not realizing that full circle, just in hindsight. So even though it's not immediate, sometimes it does take time and it comes back, especially when it's supposed to be part of your journey and part of your story. That fire that you feel, that knowing, that truth that you know, this is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
If you just have faith and perseverance, discipline, it will come to you. Just might not be in the way you would have ever thought. Like I never thought I'd be in higher education doing what I'm doing now. And now I get to be involved in not only the Brighton Chamber, but the Ann Arbor Chamber and all these different groups. And it's like,
and the people that come into your life. Both, like, for one, like I met you at the Brighton Chamber, one of the marketing mashups. Like I think it was the very first one that we did.
It was.
And then the people that you're inspiring, you know, and it's just, it puts you on a path because this is what I'm seeing too. When I started my business, like the most people that I'm around now, I didn't know even existed back then.
Right.
You know,
Yet they were here this whole time.
They've been here this whole time. I was in other communities. I buried myself in my work.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of like friends from the standpoint of people outside of work that I was hanging out with. I was really buried in my work. And then I'd go home to my family. And so there was not many people in this community that I knew. I ran for school board to try to make an impact in my community. And it was the craziest, most intense experience in my life because I didn't have a linear path and I had a lot of like learning lessons in my life and some things go on record. Right. And so like not being homeless, but having eviction notices, like repossessions, like in the sense of like not making money and being broke when I was younger and like making all these mistakes. When I started running for school board, that stuff got unearthed. And it was like the people that were running against me were trying to destroy me in my community.
Right.
And it was one of those things of like continuing to push and go at it. And thankfully I did not win because I learned from that. Right. It's one of those things. Like, God help me win. Oh no, you know, like I don't really like what I learned is I don't have to be on a school board to make an impact.
Exactly.
I got to learn, I got to meet a lot of cool people, but what I really was able to get out of the comfort zone of like, if I can do this, I can start a business.
Right. Right.
And so that was the seed for that. And it really did, the relationships, the people that I met through the experience, I was meant to go through all of that in order to get to where I am now.
Right. It provides you with the platform that you didn't know you needed.
Yeah.
And then you're provided it, and that's what then leverages you.
5,000%.
Yes.
So we had this in this. So like, you know, like when we talk about being ostracized in the community. So I was running for school board. It was the first year that Trump ran and won. And I only say that because there was a big voter turnout. And so I ended up getting like 7,000 votes in this community. I lost by 169 votes. That's how close I was to the biggest hell of my life. You know, like being stuck on the school board because it's not goodness and love. It's there's a lot of disastrous, like monstrous ego politics. There's stuff that I realize I don't want any part of that because it's not making a difference. It's not making the impact that I want to make.
Right.
But going through that experience, so we had this debate, like a meet the candidates like forum where everyone, like there was talking points and everyone had a chance to answer and that kind of thing. And so I'm preparing for this event. It's at the community center down in Brighton. My brother was there, my wife, my son, my neighbors, like a whole bunch of people that I knew were there. And the people came in, this team of people came in, they had these stack of papers. And they were passing out these papers to everybody in the audience. And I'm watching it happen, but I'm not really thinking it has anything to do with me. And so then I see my brother get upset. And then I see my neighbor go run and chase this person out the door. And then my wife is like kind of scrambling. And then my campaign manager comes up to me and says, hey, I wasn't going to say anything, but that person just came in and passed out your financial records to this whole entire place and of what you did when you were younger and all this kind of stuff. And so like, I'm about to go on to where I'm public speaking in front of this whole audience. And I just like the whole audience has just got this whole detail of who I was when I was younger.
Right.
And I was like,
which has no indication of who you are now.
No, exactly. In fact, conversations I had afterwards with people were like, wow, if I would have known what you went through and where you're at now, I would be more likely to vote for you.
Right.
You know, I'm going to go in and vote for you now. I'm like, so it was, you know, that's exactly it. It's like people trying to tear us down for who we are and where we came from. Yeah. And I love that it's like to the point of like, who cares about those people? Right? Like going back to the beginning of like people that like telling your story. Yeah. And if there's people that are like, look down on you or ostracize you or whatever they feel because of whatever your story makes them feel uncomfortable. Right. Because that's mostly what it is. And I've said this so many times on the show. When I was a little kid getting picked on, it didn't make me feel good when people told me that the reason why they were picking on me is because they felt bad about themselves. But it's true.
It is. It's projection. It's displacement.
Projection. It didn't make me feel better as a kid, but now I see it so clearly as a kid or as a grown person of like, wow, these people were in such pain. Like my biggest bullies went home and got beat up by their parents, you know, and like I was too, but like I was handling it different. I was like you, where I knew there was something.
Yeah.
I knew I was meant for something, you know, and I just kept on going. But yeah, just the tangents of thinking of like how things can happen. But when we open up and we become our true selves and we go out there, the people that are meant to be in our lives come around our lives. And so I took the jump out of the plane, started my business 7 years ago, and the people that have come into my life, right? Whether I've impacted them or they've impacted me, it's been equal, you know, and like just the relationships, like this podcast, like being able to help people to get out and tell their story, you know, and I love it. And I know you're going to write your book, and I love it when I have people on and they're like, I just told my story and I'm going to go write my book. 'Cause I've had that happen. And like, that's so awesome. And if I wouldn't have went out and just been unafraid to tell my story and get out on this platform and like make a fool out of myself, because creating content is can make your stomach hurt when nobody's replying to you. Nobody's paying attention to it. It's like, do I suck? You know?
Or you just didn't pay enough money in the advertising.
You didn't pay enough money in the advertising. There's all this different stuff. But like, you know, it's being out of the comfort zone, putting yourself in that space of being uncomfortable, and life and God brings you great things.
Oh, definitely.
So that was my rant.
Well, thank you. It's very enlightening, you know, to see how you're actually inspiring me of how much one individual can make an impact in the community and beyond, you know, because if you didn't go through all of that and ended up here, then I wouldn't be here. All the people that have been on your podcast since would not have been here. Yeah. And just imagine the ripple that all their stories have made for other people. You know, it's like teamwork.
That's exactly it. And I've always heard like motivational speakers or people that are making impacts in the world that say, I'm being pulled by my mission, right? And it does make it a lot easier to go out and do things that might make you feel uncomfortable when you can look at and see how many people that you've inspired, moved, you know, and it's not a thing of like, oh, you know, I had that conversation and Abigail turned, you know, like if it wasn't for me, but when you sit and you think about those, the impacts, like literally, you probably would have figured it out. You probably would have had somebody else that came in your life, right? Maybe somebody, like I think about the people that I've impacted as a leader, and it's like I've had plenty of thoughts of, if I didn't put myself in that situation, if I made this decision instead of this decision, what would happen with that person?
Well, what happened was supposed to happen. So you don't even have to sit there and think of the what ifs, right? You know, because I like to look at time and life as both linear and cyclical, you know? So it's like, as we're moving through it, we're also repeating patterns in a way, but each step is it's finite. So that person, you come into my life, it wouldn't have been someone else, you know, because you're here. Yeah. You know, so I feel like, well, I don't know. We could get really deep and philosophical about this. I love deep conversations. Let's go. Where it's like, all right, well, what if I made the wrong decision at some point, right? Yeah. Because every action we take changes the variables ahead. So you're right. Maybe it could have been somebody else, but it wasn't. And so it's like, because we live in a dichotomic universe where all things exist and don't exist simultaneously, and all things are more than one thing, like Schrodinger's cat. The cat is both dead and alive, right? So it would be you and not be you being here. I could go on. I get it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. See, this is the stuff when I would splash people that just didn't have the comprehension. They'd be like, oh my gosh, you're crazy. It's like, you just need to read a book. I'm not trying to insult anyone. No, but there's like, I'm a comedian sometimes. It's funny. But it's so true though. And there's just people that are just, they're never like, you're speaking Greek to them. Right. It's a different language. And like, I'm sure if I picked up The Alchemist now and read it, I'd get a different message out of it. Slightly. You pick up different things, right? Because when you're ready to read, as you grow, you read things differently, or you hear messages differently. Unfortunately, there's sectors of people that are not interested in growing. And that's fine. Right. They're happy, comfortable. Maybe they're not. Like, they're probably in a lot of pain. But either way, that's their existence. And they don't know why. Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Because they either have never been shown or they've never chose to unlock that part of them.
Yep.
Because I do believe we all have that potential, because we're like plants. If we have the right amount of sunlight, water, and food, we're going to grow.
Yeah.
Or nutrients, we're going to grow and sprout and become bigger. But then if we don't feed ourselves those things, we're going to dwindle off and die and shrivel up. And too many people just don't even know the other side exists. Because had I not been verbally told what everyone was seeing, because everyone ignored it. Everyone was just like, oh, that's her.
That's her.
Okay, we'll tolerate her, but we don't like her. And I never knew why. It wasn't until someone told me that I'm like, okay, well, it all makes sense now. Now I can change it. But too many people have fear of telling people what they see, I guess.
Yep.
There's so many layers to it and variables involved, but
it goes into that we all want to be liked.
Yeah.
And I heard this, Kobe Bryant said this. I was watching this thing. He was talking about leadership, and he was like, leadership is tough. He's like, leadership can be lonely. He was like, a lot of people look at me and they think I'm a certain way or I'm an asshole or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
He was like, because I'm the type of guy that I'm sitting and eating lunch with you and you've got something in between your teeth. I'm going to say, hey, you got something between your teeth. He's like, because I want you to know, and I'm going to communicate it with you. And he's like, the last thing I want you to do is leave lunch and be like, man, why didn't Kobe tell me that I have something in between my teeth? He's like, I'm coming from a place of love.
Exactly. And I see that is how people should be, right? Like, I want people to tell me if I got lipstick on my teeth, tell me.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'm not insulted. I'm grateful. I'm thankful that you brought it up.
I was going to play a joke on you and say it was there the whole time.
Oh,
no. I was like, I'm not.
I believe it.
Oh, man, I should have told you.
Hey, you missed the shots you on tape.
I'm so glad you gave me permission. I've been waiting for an hour to tell you.
Oh, but it's so true, and I think too many of us live in a world where we're ignorant to what we don't know. And if we could all just come together as a collective and inspire others or just share exactly what it is that we see in rooted in love, coming from a place of love, not selfishness, not, ego. But that's the thing. Unless you tame your ego, unless you kill it off or, tame it, or however you want to put it, I don't know, then you have to work on yourself first, though, before you can be that type of person, though, to be that type of leader, because then it will come off as that, because it might actually be from that.
Yeah.
Or someone not telling you have spinach in your teeth. Well, I look better than she does, because she's got spinach in her teeth and I'm just going to let her have it there.
Yep.
So why aren't people telling you? You have to look at it that angle as well.
That's true. What kind of are they afraid to tell me, or are they trying to set me up for failure? What kind of person are they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in this world, you never know, because there's so much evil that prevails, and evil comes in different forms.
Yep.
Because even if someone's predominantly good and viewed as that, and they live rooted in love, doesn't mean evil can't come in at some point at one angle and take them.
Yeah.
I almost look at it, I have like this analogy that imagine you have, evil thoughts coming in and thoughts of love coming in. Like, you are an observer, right? So the thoughts aren't yours, but you have the choice to capture the thoughts that come at you.
Yep.
And then that's an action. Once you choose, okay, I'm going to take that thought and I'm going to capture it, and then I'm going to act on it, and I'm going to repeat it. You're acting upon that thought. So you now have taken it as yours, and then that thought can grow. And then once that's like, let's say one-dimensional on the inside. And then once you repeat it so much, then say you act upon it, then now it's becoming like 2-dimensional to 3-dimensional. And then let's say 4-dimensional, because now it's going to impact other people and inside of them, it's like, how many dimensions can it impact? It's going to be like a ripple.
Yep.
But you had to choose that thought. And even people with thoughts of love all the time will still have an evil thought try to come in, because it's a spiritual war. Both evil and love are constantly like trying to play you as a puppet.
Yep.
I know of a book that explains all this, which is the Screw Tape Letters. This book, every chapter is a letter where like a senior devil is instructing like a junior devil on the art of temptation and to like capture the soul of man. And if you read it in the perspective of, like evil is calling love and God the enemy, so but then by you reading it in the perspective of evil and like demonic forces trying to take over man, then you can see how certain thoughts and behaviors of yours and other people are rooted in evil. That, yeah, because this is normal in society, most people are like this, but most people don't have this awareness to when they're like captured by that evil. Ooh. And then, I don't know,
that's interesting.
It's a really powerful book, especially if you have the like the I guess the comprehension of it, the understanding of what it's speaking of, like that awareness and discernment of spirit, love and evil, because if you're not ready for it, then it doesn't matter. You could be reading another language.
Yeah.
Right. But if the student is ready and the teacher just appeared, if that book is for you, then it'll really impact you. And then you can see how like evil thoughts and thoughts of love can come in and how you pick them, I guess. I don't know how to explain this.
Yep.
I probably sound crazy. I am a little crazy.
Have you read Outwitting the Devil?
What?
Have you read Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill?
Oh, I have it in my thrift books shopping cart.
Oh.
I'm waiting for it to come in. Yeah. I haven't bought it. I need to. I really want to read it.
Pick it up. It's so good. Okay. It's so good because the book was written in 1919. Mm-hmm. And I was listening to it on Audible during 2020. And I was like sanding my floors in redoing our bedroom. And so I literally powered through it on a weekend. And I'm listening to it and it's like 1919 and talk about like pandemics and stuff and how people treat each other and like people justify and rationalize. It's I'm like, oh my God, it's like right now.
Right.
It's 100 years later and people have not changed.
Yeah.
In the sense of like, anyways, it's a really, really good book, but it falls in line with a lot of like what you're talking about and how really there's a hell on earth.
Yeah.
A lot of us like wait, and think the hell afterward, and then we create our hell on earth.
Yes. Because they think that it's at the end.
Yeah.
They're not realizing that it's now.
Yep.
And yeah.
So the whole book is based on like Napoleon Hill has this conversation with the devil, and in the rules the devil creates is that he has to answer every question truthfully. So Napoleon Hill can ask him any question, and the devil will answer. The Napoleon Hill is going through the whole book interviewing the devil. In this book, like he was the guy that wrote The Magic of Thinking Big. This book didn't come out for like 100 years. Because he was worried about what people think.
Right.
He was worried that if this book comes out, I'm going to be blackballed.
Yes.
Like they're going to say I'm crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you listen to it, I can see why he would think that because like when the student's ready, the teacher arrives. Right. I think when it came out, people were more ready to listen than probably in 1919.
Right.
So literally he died and then his wife died and then his kids released it because his wife didn't want it to be out and while she was alive either because she didn't want any kind of like backlash from it.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I didn't know the backstory on that.
Yeah. Powerful book.
All right. I'm ordering it tonight.
Yeah.
Awesome. But that's so true. It's like that fear. But then again, maybe the seed marinated, to be released when it needed to.
Absolutely.
Like the world needed it at that point.
Yeah. Well, because if you did release it, then it probably isn't being seen. And then his other work is damaged too.
Exactly. Right. There wouldn't have been that powerful of an impact.
It would have been a highly controversial book at that point, for sure.
Well, it's tough because it's like when you are open and honest or when you see it, I don't know, maybe you call it a higher level or like just a multitude of perspectives. You're speaking a language that if someone else doesn't speak that language too, you will be looked at as bizarre and strange. It's like going up to someone and I'm just going to speak Spanish to you, even though you don't know Spanish.
Yeah.
So then they're looking at you like, what? What's this person saying?
Yep.
And then they're like, are you schizophrenic? Like, you know how many times I got that? Like, because I would just pull so many disciplines together and like create this big picture, but my audience was wrong. And then all they knew is like basic mental illnesses and stuff. Like, you have word salad? Like, are you crazy? It's like, no, like, give me a few hours. Like, we'll chart this out. Like, it'll blow your mind if you understand the root of what I'm saying. Because then I'll take it, different audience. I'll say the same thing. And they're like, whoa, that's genius.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, okay, my people. Yeah. Like, it just reminds me in college, I got marked down on this paper because I was in psychology and philosophy.
Yeah.
Getting 2 bachelors. And I was integrating philosophical constructs into my psychology paper, and I get marked down because it was above the professor's head, and she's never understood that. She couldn't understand the construct, the philosophical root of what I was saying. So I got a C on the paper. And then I take it over here to the people that know philosophy, and I'm like, am I crazy? And they're like, no, this is genius. And I'm like,
wrong audience.
Right, wrong audience. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's, I love it because it's like the stuff that comes up in life, like we talked about, and like, you know, it's finding the wrong audience and then not caring.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
I'm in this group coaching that we meet once a month, and it's like helping us form the structure of our business and align with our core values and stuff. And so I was in the hot seat and I was talking about my core values for my company. And one of my core values is eat faces. And have I told you the story?
I don't know.
Okay. So when I was a sales director for this company, when I started working for this company, there were millions of dollars in debt. And the owner, when I was interviewing with her, said, I really need to hire you, but I don't know how I'm going to afford you. Right now, we're really in a tough situation. We've been told to either file bankruptcy and close up business, call it a day.
Yeah.
Our other option was to sell off assets that we had and try to recoup as much money as we could. We tried to do that, and that failed, which they were trying to sell to my mentor. My mentor introduced me to her. She's like, our third option is to try to restructure the debt and bring in somebody from the outside that can help us really regrow our company. And so that's what they did. They brought me in. And so we grew this company that was really successful. We became really successful. And we ended up winning Franchisee of the Year, and I had my leadership team with me out in Chicago, and we won, and we were out celebrating. Wow. And the franchise leaders, of the president, and all the executives took us out, and other owners from the franchise joined us, and we were all hanging out. And we were in this loud bar in Chicago, and this guy that owned he owned a franchise. He was telling me about all the reasons why he wasn't us, why he sucked essentially. But it was not his fault. It was everybody else's.
Interesting. Victim mentality.
Total victim mentality. Yeah. And I have no, like, I can empathize. I want to help people so much, but when I realize it's the victim, like I stopped splashing.
Right.
you know, it's like,
you can do at that point.
I'm just going to get you wet. Or what I always used to say is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Yes.
And when you do force him to drink, you end up with a carcass. And then, you know, like, now I got to get rid of a horse. What do I do with it? You know, like, and that's happened so much. There's been so many times where I've wanted it so much more than that other person did. I wanted them to be so much better or so much more successful than what they wanted for themselves. And so I had to learn to stop splashing at the people that don't want it, right? They don't want to get wet. Don't splash. And so this guy, he's given me all the reasons, and I some of his reasons were justifiable, but it was because he was waiting for somebody else to come and help him. Yeah. And I'm like, if I would have sat and waited for somebody to help me, just like you, I'd be in the same exact situation you are. The only difference between me and you is that I realized if I don't go eat, we're going to go hungry. Like, and so at the end of the day, I'm a face-eating lion that if it comes down to me and my people eating, I'm going to go eat the faces. And I'm going to go and make sure that we're eating. And that probably would have died there, but it was like we're in this loud bar, and as I'm shouting to try to get my voice over the loud things that are going on, it all went quiet. And my leadership team was like, eat faces.
That's how you know.
And so eat faces, I referenced at the beginning, to me means thriving in spite of the circumstances. Yes. There's always going to be things. COVID comes along and happens. Like there's going to be things that we can't control. And so many of us focus on the things that we can't control. Man, I wish that COVID never happened. Man, I wish that, you know, this didn't come along. Man, I wish that I grew up with two parents that, you know, blah, blah, blah. There's so many things that we could sit and wish for. It doesn't make it happen.
Exactly.
Instead, where's the beauty in it? Taking your story and going and inspiring other people turns it around. And now this isn't something that happened to you. It's something that happened for you.
Right. Exactly.
And so it's just taking that. So that long story to say that I was going through my core values, and one of the people in the group, and I love her for this because she was very, it was very hard for her to come up with this constructive criticism. She was like hemming and hawing, and I knew there was going to be a but. She was like kind of trying to give me this feedback. And she was like, I just think that, that eat faces is too aggressive in that you know, you probably don't want women working with you. Like I wouldn't approach you if I knew that if I didn't know the story and I didn't know you, I wouldn't approach you because that to me, eat faces sounds so aggressive. And she was giving great feedback for her, right?
Yeah. For that audience.
I'm like, great, because what I've learned is that people that are repelled by the way that I talk,
Yeah.
bye.
Right. They're not your people.
They're not
your
my people.
tribe. Yeah.
And I'm sorry,
Yeah.
it's not that I don't like you or anything else, but if I'm probably not going to have success working together with you if you're offended by the words that I'm saying.
Right. Like not everyone's a shark. You don't go in the shark tank.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think core values, or it should, in like even marketing statements, should repel and attract. They should repel the people that you don't want, and they should attract the people that are like, I'm down with that. I want to eat faces too.
Exactly.
That's me, right? All day. Let's go. And so I'm like, so what's really cool is I've had at least 50 people, and the majority of them that have never even worked with me, that when they're having a bad day, I get a message, whether it's an email, a text, a Facebook message, and they'll say, man, I was having a tough day, and I walked up to the top of the mountain, and I screamed at the top of my lung, eat faces. And I'm like, that's so freaking
and
cool.
Like reignites them.
That's so cool. Like these people, and some, like I said, a lot of them never even have worked with me from as a coaching standpoint, but they just take that and they like ran with it. And I'm like, so are there people like you to this lady that would be like, I never want to work with her? Yeah. When I came home and told my wife what I said, she wasn't letting me sleep on the couch. She thought it was disgusting, right? Like she was like, I can't believe that you said anything like that. And I'm like,
sleep on the couch.
she was appalled by the eat faces thing. But now she understands what it's about, and she's bought in. And she was like, so this lady was giving me the feedback, and she was like, you probably don't have many women clients, do you? And I'm like, what's so funny about that is because I don't go purposely seek male or female clients, but 80% of my clientele for the past 5 years has been women.
Wow. Yeah. See the perception that she had based off her own biases.
Yeah.
She doesn't know.
She doesn't know.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's so interesting.
Right.
But my whole point is if I wasn't stronger in my mentality and like so into my beliefs that I know that this is what I want, like there's so many people would be like, oh my God, you're probably right. Oh, I shouldn't offend people. Like that's
right.
You know what? I got to switch up my messaging
because other people want you to be reserved because it's fearful to them. When you're brighter than they are, they're like frightened and scared.
Yep.
And then they want you to dim their light.
Those of us that you having the courage to come on and tell your story that inspires other people, like that people look up to us.
Yeah.
They're like, wow, I wish that I had the courage to do that.
Well, now you can. We're passing it on to you, so now you can have the courage too.
5,000%. And I'm so glad you found a way to break that wall. That was so excellent.
I like to say one smile at a time. We're passing the smiles along. It's contagious.
5,000%. Abigail, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I can't wait for our next one. As I said,
likewise.
It's one of those things. This isn't a limited scarcity event. And I already, as we were talking, thought about a couple other people I'm going to introduce you to that have podcasts. So my friend Cindy Spar, who was on a month or so ago, she has a podcast called God Winked that, oh my God.
I love that book. God winks.
So she has people tell stories about how God has influenced their lives, or there's a story, and I'm like, you need to be on her show. It'd be phenomenal. So,
well, thank you. That would be wonderful.
My pleasure. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for having me, and thank you all for listening.
My pleasure.